I need a link. Who need a link? Get some people here. Uh, oh yeah, you have so many channels.
That's why I ask.
It's
Which one
on.
are you streaming
It's
to?
it's in the general, just in the general one.
That way I can go to
Oh,
it on
there it is.
YouTube.
Well, it actually does say thermonuclear
I
weapons.
told you I was gonna put it in there. It sure did.
Outstanding. My favorite topic. Yeah, I have this weird obsession with it, with them, but it's like,
I
wow.
don't see where you posted that at. Maybe it's in a channel I can't see yet.
Oh, I think it's up. I think I see it. I see it. Do you want the link?
Yeah. Just shoot that over to me private.
Give me a second. I
I'm
can
a
do
big fan of following links if I ain't gotta, dig things out myself.
Boom. There you go. Ooh, my. So, yeah. Yeah, actually, we were talking a little bit before the show started about how the general public, most people think that nuclear weapons are these really big bombs.
Well,
And,
no, that's what the general consensus is. If you ask somebody what a nuclear weapon is, what they're imagining or what they're describing is the stereotypical nuclear mushroom cloud, the concussion with the radioactivity that they've heard about following it.
Mhm.
Other than that, they don't really have a description for what a nuclear weapon is, even though nuclear material can be weaponized for a variety of different applications.
Absolutely. And that's kind of like why I was thinking about it today, especially with what's going on in Russia. Like my general physics one, that's like the beginning of people who want to be physicists. Um, at the end of the semester, I do a lecture on how a thermonuclear weapon works, and then show and also go over so like nuclear strategy. Like they just think that it's going to be, well, just like you said, and not realizing that these are like I mean, it wouldn't bomb us back to the Stone Age, but a nuclear exchange basically would be going back to steam power. And I had the simulation which I used to kind of show what a nuclear bombardment would look like in, because I live in Los Angeles, so what it would look like in Los Angeles. And of course, some students are like, "Oh, that's cool," but others freak out, like they had no idea. They had no idea. They just,
Right.
I mean, and
It,
what I think it is because it's post Cold War. During the
yes.
Cold War, anytime the movies always showed nuclear holocaust, like a nuclear exchange, boom, end of the world. But now it's sort of changed into, well, terrorists would use nuclear weapons. It would be a big bomb.
Well, let's point it out. The closest point of reference visually or culturally that they would actually have is 9/11. So when they think of a
Yeah.
terrorist act, they're thinking of, crude mechanical overtakings and downing of
Mhm.
infrastructure.
Yeah. Which that's not the goal of thermonuclear
In
weapons.
comparison to that threat versus the threat of the Cold War and or nuclear exchange or weaponry being deployed
Mhm.
is like a drop in the bucket in comparison.
Absolutely.
Just real quick, guys. I want to just tell everybody what that you guys are missing in the chat. Big Jake says hello. Hope you guys
Oh,
have a
hey,
good
Jake.
stream.
Hello.
James the Mix is saying hello to you guys as well.
James and Nick. Hello.
Han Banana had dropped in and then he removed his messages, but he was in there saying some
Oh yeah,
some
he
stupid
probably
crap.
saw me.
But whatever.
I don't put up with his autism.
He's a funny guy. He's a funny guy.
But go ahead.
Yeah,
You guys
I can agree
continue
with
on.
that
I'm
statement.
just going to pop in from time to time and let you guys know what's in the chat.
Nice. Um, yeah, but it's I've been thinking about, because everybody, the idea of a tactical nuclear exchange has been sort of started to throw around.
Well, let's think about what you just said right there. There's stigma built into that statement. A tactical nuclear exchange is you're thinking it's done with purpose.
Yeah.
What if it's just done as a show of force? What kind
Well,
of tactics would be used behind that? Where you
yeah,
could get away with it?
that's I mean that's sort of the question. It's I mean,
I think I stumbled onto an example in history that, if
Mhm.
repeated today, would shut down our modern civilization. We'd be back to, I don't know, like 30s, 40s. We wouldn't be
Well,
back to the Stone Age, but we'd be back to the 30s and 40s.
actually, and that's what I said earlier. Actually, more like like right when the Industrial Revolution started, because
Right.
we could still use steam power.
Right.
But
That's why I say, like 30s and 40s. We had minor circuitry, stuff like that, but nothing like the advanced digital
no,
society that we built on top of that.
and that includes we sort of get used to all of this infrastructure we have. Food,
Mm-hmm.
industrial farming. It's not going to exist anymore. Um, and it's but then with the new sort of world order post fall of the Soviet Union, nuclear weapons I think have taken on a different role. It's I mean, obviously the United States has it, and for us we use strategic weapons. I mean, we do have
Right.
tactical nuclear weapons, but yeah, in fact, when we were building our stockpile, and the great thing about, and when I say the great thing, some people are like, "Oh, how did you call the weapon great?" I'm just saying the
It is a
advantage.
great weapon. What other weapon is better than it? If there's
This
nothing else better, then obviously it is great by definition.
is true. This is true. The way I think about it is, um, it in the grand scheme of things, how old Earth is. Humans have only been here for a very, very short amount of time,
Oh, a
and
blip.
sort of what made us who we are now is when we were able to control and manipulate fire. Then we were able to, do all the other things, which, that's sort of the start of civilization. And of course, the first thing we looked at was the stars. Oh, look at these things, and the sun, look at the sun. And then just a short time later, I mean, of course, we're talking hundreds of thousands of years,
Mhm.
but in terms of Earth, I mean, this is how brilliant humans are. In 1945, we detonated a star on this planet. And I mean,
Oh,
essentially,
we've detonated thousands of them.
yeah, and then we did a bunch of them. I mean, a thermonuclear weapon. I mean, I mean, the sun does.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where the term comes from. It's burning hydrogen. It's called a thermonuclear burn. And
Well, it's not really burning though, isn't it fusing?
yeah, it's fusing. It's fusing. It's taking hydrogen, fusing
The
it, and it's extracting the energy from that. You
well,
know,
we're uncontrollably releasing it.
yeah. But the sun, though, is very big, right? So it's got
Very
gravity
far away.
very
What,
far
like
away.
93, 92 million miles away?
And of course, sort of gravity keeps it together. So um, it's what you would call a controlled, I guess, thermonuclear burn. And
Yes, yes.
the thing with
Well, I wouldn't say controlled even because there's nothing but physics and, the nature controlling it. I would say it's a stabilized
yeah,
burn.
yeah, that's what it is. I mean, in fact, that's how a star becomes a star. It's you have all this hydrogen, we have these gases, I mean, hydrogen being,
Well, not even that. It's just enough visible material collected in a space to start condensating.
yeah, it's you get enough of it, then gravity causes it to collapse.
Gravity does the rest.
And then, of course, as it compresses, it creates heat, and there's this thing called the Coulomb barrier. It's it's basically the way you can describe it is like you have two magnets, and the like ends want to repel each other, and
Right.
as you get closer and closer and closer, that force starts to build. But with this thing called the Coulomb barrier, it's like it looks like it should grow infinitely, but at some point, if you can get them close enough, all
Right.
of a sudden that repulsive force drops, and I kid you not, the force which puts them together. Us physicists are really creative. We call it the strong force because it's strong. Um, you have to have fusion, and of course, everybody says, "Oh, I wish we could get fusion here. We could get fusion on Earth. We'd
Well,
have less
we
energy."
can. We have fusion here, but we want controlled, stable
Control
fusion.
stable, yeah.
We can make it go boom. It's controlling the thing.
Yeah, and I mean that's essentially what a thermonuclear weapon is. I mean, the other misconceptions, sometimes they call it a hydrogen bomb. The actual fusion part of the weapon doesn't do the destructive stuff, doesn't release.
No.
It's all it does is create well, a flux of neutrons, which
Mm-hmm.
make your regular just implosion fission type weapon just more efficient. That's it. Um, and what's cool, it's like, the only place in the world where there's that much energy is when a nuclear weapon detonates. You get enough energy to cause those to fuse. Boom, they fuse and they create a bunch of electrons, which sort of like reflect off the interior of a thermonuclear weapon. And of course, this all happens in like 0.2
Yeah,
seconds.
in no
Then,
time at all. That's why
exactly.
you get such a large concussion wave off of it.
Oh, yeah. Then it just, the whole
Because
thing
it happens.
falls
If it
apart.
happened over a long period of time, you'd never even know it was happening. But because
Mm-mm.
it happens in such a short period of time, uncontrolled, all of that energy is released at the same time, or relatively the same time, if you want
Yeah.
to get nitpicky about it. But that's what creates all the devastation, is that built up concussion.
Mm-hmm.
we
And
aren't we aren't
the temperature.
using nuclear weapons in any new fashion to any type of old bomb. Black powder runs on the same premise. You get said thing you want dead close enough to concussion and they go boom.
Yep. That's why I'm hoping we'll eventually have directed energy weapons because,
Oh, we already do. It's just a matter of the applied
yeah,
physics
and
to be
making
able
them
to carry it.
efficient. Exactly. It's
Right.
um, uh, when I did some work at NAVSEA, and there they have what's called a free electron laser. It's now
Ooh.
being deployed, but the thing is, it's really big, and you have to have it running continuously, but it's perfect to put on, let's say, aircraft carriers
Yes.
because they have the room and they
Well,
can,
they're already gyro stabilized.
exactly. And well, what's even weird, which is like really classified, and I've tried to figure out how it works. It's one of the few things which I can't figure out. They have adaptive optics because and when you're out on the ocean, fog and
Mm-hmm.
clouds and this.
Yes.
Um, how do you shoot a laser through all of that without having to dissipate?
Oh. You shoot a different type of laser. You use a maser.
I've heard that term before.
Yes, it's using microwaves through quartz crystal to create a laser made out of, that stuff. X-rays usually, I think.
Now, let me look that up. I've heard that before, but
There's
you know,
also now, because of the same, deployment of the physics, there's
mhm.
phasers too, which create lasers out of sound waves.
Mazer, a drinking vessel, a type of Germanic drinking vessel crafted in the 13th to 16th century.
You might have to look up microwave laser.
Oh, I put a Z. I put a Z.
Oh yeah, that's also wrong
Yeah,
too.
microwave amplification by stimulated emission of radiation.
Hey,
So,
hey guys, I'm not trying to interrupt again, but I am interrupting. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on some of the chat. We've got Liz is here. She's participating in with you guys tonight. Hello, Liz.
Hello, Liz.
Megan is in the chat as well. Again, we've said hello to Big Jake as well. I also see Nick is catching up as well to the chat.
oh yeah, sorry, I wasn't watching the chat.
That's all right. I got you guys covered on the chat, so feel free to keep doing what you guys are doing and talking what you guys are doing. You guys are not aware, Nick and the cameraman are having a discussion. I am monitoring the chat, so welcome everyone. And I'll keep chatting with you guys as long as they keep talking.
Yeah, hopefully everybody won't be depressed. Maybe we can run my nuclear war simulation and
Oh, if done right, there won't be a single body dropped or a life lost. And all of World War III will happen with a single detonation, and then it'll be over with.
yeah, well, one of the reasons why we gravitate, well, I mean, the natural evolution of our first atomic weapons was thermonuclear weapons because, Fat Man and Little Boy were ridiculously inefficient because,
Oh, and they were ridiculously large too.
yeah, and that's the other thing. You need one aircraft to carry one bomb.
Look at the evolution of nuclear weapons though, just in the short amount of time between their development. Look at Fat Man, look at Little Boy, and then look at Davy Crockett.
Yeah, which we don't use.
No, we don't use, sadly. I mean,
Well,
that would be a perfect little, you know, it has uses, is what I'm saying, in comparison to the larger ones.
yeah, actually, Davy Crockett was like designed as a tactical nuclear weapon. I mean, in fact, when they tested it, they
Right.
detonated, and then okay, so we're going to send our soldiers there.
That's we learned you don't want to do that, so that
No,
part
you don't
gotta
want to do
get
that.
taken out.
And
You you nuke an area, and then you wait for them to rush towards you.
yeah, that's a silly idea. And the other thing though
Well, not if you've
is,
got them bottlenecked.
well, the other reason though why we don't deploy tactical weapons is because we have this thing called they have some fancy word for it. It's like action permissible link. But basically, as you know, only the president of the United States can authorize a nuclear strike. So they didn't really want to have
Right.
field commanders have access to it and
Mhm.
decide on their own to
Well, think
deploy
about this. If a field commander has access to it, he's not the one lighting it off. It's the moron grunts on the ground. And trust me, I know. I've been on the ground.
them.
I know exactly what I'm talking about. Those are the exact type of people. Yeah, you trust them to go to war, kill people, and or die, but there's no
Mhm.
way in hell you're trusting them with any type of nuke. You don't even trust these guys with having, I don't know, coffee makers in their tents.
Well, and also it's the doctrine of I guess only us civilians can decide to end the world. The military can't do it for
Well, no,
us.
no, no. What I'm saying with the if done right scenario with
Mhm.
just one weapon, there nobody's hurt. Civilization still exists, but we're just in the 1920s and 1930s, back when Tesla electrified the World's Fair again.
Mhm.
And if you think about it, without me explaining the process, you know who Van Allen is, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So you know what happened to the Van Allen belt, right?
Oh yeah, it was
Hold
Project
on, hold on.
Starfish.
Yeah. So imagine what repeating that project would happen if you did it today.
Yeah, and for the chat who's watching, the Earth has these what they call the Van Allen radiation belts. Well, it was a long, complicated discussion, but also in the 50s and 60s, I think it was in the 60s, they had this idea called Project Starfish, um, because as some of the old movies depict, if you detonate a nuclear weapon high in the atmosphere, it sends out this electromagnetic pulse and you can knock out communications and stuff like that. So we decided to launch these nuclear weapons in low orbit, detonate them, and see how they react. But what
And
happens is all that high energy particles got trapped in these radiation belts, and they're still
like a
there.
magnet,
Yep,
it sucked them up like a magnet because that's how physics
yep,
works, you know? It's like
exactly.
I'm gonna go to the point where I'm wanted or that attracts me the most.
Yeah, and to this day, I mean, they when doing rocket launches and stuff like that, especially with humans, I
They
mean,
have to account for it.
yeah, they avoid it. They don't go through there.
But with how in comparison to when they did that then, think about what kind of infrastructure was in space. Practically nothing in comparison to what
Exactly.
we have now.
Yeah,
If
I'm
that
saying
was done
still
now, we would be at the 1920s World Fair again.
yeah,
No
because I mean,
internet, no mass communication. The internet just wouldn't function anymore.
yeah, because you could potentially knock out, satellites,
But
which
that's exactly what would happen. All those Starlink satellites, all them high elevation GPS satellites, dude, they're all done for at least a decade.
yep.
Because you have to give the radiation from the belts that are being absorbed time to process.
Yeah, it'll be interesting with the nuclear exchange because I mean, I'm sure that would be part
If
of
you
the
think about
strategy.
it though, if you think about it, if someone, being all fanatical is threatening to detonate a nuclear weapon, in what way could they show force, detonate a nuclear weapon, have an effect, and never target a single person?
Well, I mean, that's the thing with, I mean, the thing which kind of scares me about it, and this happened after 9/11. I mean, Congress commissioned, and of course, they used, I think they were master's students who were in physics, if they could build an off the shelf nuclear weapon. And they came up with this whole plan. I mean, they got this old cannon from an army surplus store, modified it to basically create what, the little boy style, where you just take a uranium slug and slam it into the other. The one
Okay.
thing they couldn't get was the uranium.
Okay. Here's what let's hypothetically say you had an infinite budget to pull this off, right?
Mhm.
Go to Amazon right now. Type uranium ore.
I've seen that. I've seen that.
You can get raw uranium ore, and then all you have to do is magnetically refine it yourself. Now you have the cake you need.
Yeah, I don't know if you can refine that, or it's not. But that's the thing with uranium. People, especially after 9/11, were like, well, what if somebody pulls in a bomb or this or that? Here's the deal: you cannot enrich uranium without people finding out about it.
You're right.
Because it releases neutrons, and neutrons.
And we detect it.
Yeah, we detect it right away. I mean, when we say like a country like Iran is enriching uranium or North Korea, it's not that we don't know. Sometimes politicians, especially the presidents, will go, "Well, they may be enriching." It's like, no, we know.
We know because we can recognize the exact isotope that's being given off as a byproduct. We know exactly what produces this.
It's funny. It's there's one in Antarctica. It's called Ice Cube, and there's another one in Japan. It's just a giant tank of water.
Oh yeah. Real deep, real dark, so that it can catch those isotopes as they're traveling, because they travel through everything.
And when they go through the water, they travel faster than the speed of light in water. So they're not violating speed of light in a vacuum. It's just speed of light. It's kind of like breaking the sound barrier. And they emit radiation.
Right.
It's called Cherenkov radiation, and it just lights the whole thing up. They normally use those detectors for like cosmic rays and stuff like that for the same application because it lights it up. But
all they need is just a couple of measurements, and then they can triangulate exactly where that's coming from.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just like GPS built into the Earth.
Those detectors do detect trajectory. I mean, that's the whole point.
Yes. You just use eye. You just use plane tracking mechanics. And you just use that in the proper spin of the Earth, so that you're not looking in the wrong direction, of course. But yes.
Yeah, that's why like in Antarctica, this project called Ice Cube, it's the ice down there, below the surface is like crystal clear.
And it makes a real good water filter.
It makes a really good Cherenkov detector. It's like 1 mile and 1 mile deep, and they just put a bunch of PMTs there. And I think the other advantage is, because they do studies about they're the ones who won the Nobel Prize, like going, they keep going back in time to like real beginning of the Big Bang. And for some reason, it's better in the southern continent, and I forgot why. I don't remember why, but I'd love to go south of the equator. I've never been in. I think it would be so weird.
Hey Nick,
to like see a different sky.
And Nick, the comment from Liz over there, that might be something. It might have just popped up for you, but she had something that she was going to say in regards to what you were talking about.
Oh, neat.
I didn't know if I was going to be able to pronounce all those big words, so I didn't want to read it for you. Just kidding.
I can't find it.
I'll put it back on here.
Okay. Big words. Let's see where it is.
I just reposted it.
You must be posting.
Oh, the Hanford. Yep. Hanford is where they enriched made the plutonium. Absolutely, yeah. And yep, Flaky Jake, you're correct. That's in fact, it became a Superfund site. My dad did work in the 80s about cleaning that site up. I forgot where it was. Isn't that in Oregon or Washington? I could be wrong.
Where they were making the heavy water sodium reactor?
Yeah, there's Hanford. I know there's another one.
Wait,
Tennessee.
One of those over near the West Coast. One of those exploded.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was a small reactor, right?
But it was a heavy water sodium reactor. Is what was making me think of it.
Somewhere in the Los Angeles mountains. It's
yeah.
Los Angeles don't know about it.
But even then, you don't even need real, conventional nuclear materials to get a nuclear reaction. You just need to know the physics.
That's what Eastern Washington. Exactly. That's where the Hanford site is. What's interesting, it's when nations talk about nuclear weapons, they're mostly strategic. But for a terrorist, they don't need an efficient weapon. They don't need, they just need one.
Right.
And even if it doesn't do a lot of damage, the chaos that would cause is essentially what, a terrorist would want to do.
Yeah, but I'm not exactly arguing against that. We need to shake a lot of stupid ones off. We've been letting them breed for far too long. We've mitigated natural selection.
Well, I think that's humans in general. I swear, and of course I'm gonna get shit for saying this, but ever sort of like coming on YouTube and communicating with like sort of people outside of my circle here in California, I'm just like, what? Are you serious? Like, what? But um, but that's why it's interesting about Russia. Because I said this at the start of the Ukraine war. It's like Russia. I mean, just look at how they're fighting the war. Like the only reason we consider Russia sort of a superpower is only because they have nuclear weapons. I mean, if they
Oh,
can,
if they didn't have nuclear weapons, we've already shown through their hilariously failed efforts in Ukraine that if they didn't have nuclear weapons, Russia would be singing the Star-Spangled Banner right now.
absolutely, absolutely,
Probably the same with China.
exactly. I mean, the only reason which these countries have any credibility is because, well, okay, so we have nuclear weapons, so you have to pay attention to us.
Not to say that they wouldn't have figured out the physics with enough time. I mean, monkeys with typewriters, the whole Shakespeare thing, right? But they wouldn't have nuclear weapons had somebody not gave them nuclear weapons. They didn't develop those things. That's
All
all
right.
from stolen American technology.
There's still people who argue like we shouldn't have executed the Rosenbergs because like they're the ones who sent the information to Russia.
Yes,
I'm like,
yes,
no, it's called freaking treason.
yes, it's called treason.
They're like, well, they had two kids and you orphaned them. It's like that's not the state's fault.
No, no,
That's
no.
they're the ones who chose to do it.
Now, in their train of thought and the logic that they just brought up, okay, I see where you're going. We should have executed them too.
Yeah, it's
I'm just saying, when people try to, fight stupidity, I can get stupider.
but the thing with North Korea though is
Oh,
once a nation has nuclear
yeah,
weapons, Russia has shown that essentially they can do things with impunity.
yeah.
Like invade Russia. But the thing with Russia is they can't lose that war. I mean, they're already look so bad
Well,
with the
okay,
war.
okay.
But if they get pushed in a corner, they might consider using tactical nuclear weapons
I
to beat
agree
them.
with the statement that they can't lose that war, but what does that even mean? What does losing even mean for them? At what point do they lose?
Yeah, well, I mean, they might have another Afghanistan on their hands, or another
But
Vietnam.
the ever raging war machine needs another Afghanistan since we just shut down Afghanistan. That beast is hungry.
Well,
It
this is
didn't
true.
go away.
This is true. Well, this is what I tell my students. I go, look, there's one industry where it's recession proof.
War.
Defense. you know.
No, war. We don't do any defense. When's the last time anybody struck an American target?
Well,
9/11 doesn't count. That was an inside job.
well, I don't know about that. But, it's funny. God, it must have been 10 years ago. I was on some conservative AM show as the resident expert, and they were trying to, they were talking about, oh, look at all the thermite and this and that, and
Yo, they were talking about those pools for like the next week and a half. When they were digging through rubble, there were interviews on the street kind of bullshit, because the media that's all that was running for weeks and weeks after that happened.
yeah,
They were talking about the molten metal pools underneath, and they couldn't keep digging in those areas
yeah.
because of it.
Well, I loved how they say, well, these people on the internet thought they were so smart. They're like, well, they said the steel columns failed, but jet fuel doesn't burn at
No,
a temperature
I was
that can melt steel.
I was in the US Army Corps of Engineers. I'm looking at all of this happening on live morning TV after PT and everything else, and looking at all this going, this is bullshit. Like, not that it happened, like what I'm seeing is theater. I'm looking at it and I can see, like when a person from the military, right, that's served,
Mhm.
when they look at a movie that's depicting any kind of aspect of military life, how they can point out every single detail that's wrong.
Well, the
It's
thing about
that exact same kind of thing. It's like there is a million different coincidences that all happened at the same time.
Oh,
It's like, no, no,
everything
no.
has coincidences. And what I was going to say about the steel, it's like they thought they were so smart that, haha, I caught you. I was like, you're right. Steel does not melt at the burning at the temperature where jet fuel burns at. But you know, you know, metal doesn't go from being rigid. You heat it up and then it just melts down. It softens.
Softens.
Yeah, and it bends and
And that which but here's the thing. So that which is under the highest pressure, which would be the lower areas, had the fire been from the bottom up, the fire thing could have totally been plausible
what do you mean?
for the way that it collapsed. It collapsed, it imploded in on itself. That's a
No,
controlled fall.
no, no.
There was
I think
3 of them, WTC-1, WTC-2, and WTC-7, all did controlled falls.
yeah, I don't know much about these 7. You know, Megan just put something like that's perhaps about what do you call it? Insurance, but you know, we don't study it anymore because God, it's so weird. Like I have students who were not alive when 9/11 happened. That's
Oh,
kind of
doesn't
like
that's gotta bug you now,
it's
looking at
weird.
people I know, right?
It's
It's
like when
like
I was a kid, you know, Vietnam was very fresh in everybody's mind, but since it didn't happen while I was able to, you know, be cognizant of anything,
right,
it just
right.
seems like ancient history. Vietnam was years
That
ago.
thing that people talked about, but you don't have any real reference to
Yeah.
it.
I'm gonna interrupt you guys here just to bring in some things from the chat. I hope my mic didn't blow out Megan's
Nope.
No,
eardrums
it
this
sounds good.
time. They were saying that 9/11 didn't count, and with the insurance policy, it was odd that the way the last building had collapsed after the insurance policy taken out on it.
Yeah.
And what was it? The previous day they announced that they lost $2 trillion, Rumsfeld did? That they couldn't account for what, $2 trillion?
No.
Yeah, they want me to pull this up?
No. I mean, the idea that, and that's what really kind of bugs me about sort of the internet. I love free speech, of course, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I had this debate with my friend. He was convinced that the internet's going. He thought that you know the powers that be, governments or whatever, control information, and that's what keeps the people subjugated. And the internet would allow the free exchange of ideas, and nobody could control it. And I told him, I was like, dude, if you open up an open forum for everybody, which I agree
Yep.
it should exist, but no, it's not going to be intelligent discussion. It's going to be
Right.
we
You're
didn't
right
land on
on
the
that.
moon. We did 9/11
No,
was
no. So
conspiracy.
what he failed to account for is that he was self-projecting, and he thought that everybody had a decent sense of intelligence to them,
Yes.
when he
Yeah.
didn't realize that the majority of man are window-licking morons.
Yeah. I mean, we see that on so many levels. I mean, something as big as 9/11 and, you know, something as small as, I don't know, you know, somebody says something on the internet and it's like, "Oh my god, blah, blah,
Well
blah." It's
well,
like,
just
oh,
just just imagine, all I've gotta do with the power of the internet, all I've gotta do is get enough people encouraging me and forwarding that narrative, and it snowballs on itself.
yeah. I mean, look at what Alex Jones did.
Well, look at what just the miracle of social media, what that did.
Yeah, which
I mean,
is
miracles can go both ways. They don't have to be good or bad. They're just miraculous that they even exist.
well, I mean, I do think that the internet does help people. It does make the world smaller. I mean, you got to remember, like this one iPad. You know, the access I have to information on this
Mhm.
iPad is more information,
Than
and I
all
get
of your ancestors
than
combined.
Bill Clinton had. Like
Yes.
he wasn't able to recall, you know, and intelligence agencies weren't able to recall it. But now everybody can do it. I mean, think you could be in the middle of the desert, no matter what country you are, with satellite internet, you have access to the tome of human
Yeah.
knowledge.
You have
However, like you
Alexandria
said,
everywhere.
is that going to get people to read and understand it? No, it's going to get them to, oh, look, I read this. And so therefore, uh,
Well,
I'm now an expert at this. It's
in
like because
in
I saw it
in
on Wikipedia.
in defense of nature, sheep are gonna sheep and wolf are gonna wolf. So can you really blame nature? You know, the natural progression of things. The
um,
where I think we went wrong as a society is we didn't regulate the internet from the beginning. Like, if you would have to have, like, you know how, like, you have to have a ham radio license to be,
Mhm.
to broadcast amateur?
Mhm.
Imagine if you have to have, like, an internet access license, like a driving license.
I don't know about
All
that.
your identification, everything else in the system knows exactly who you are. I bet you people would be a whole lot more polite, is all I'm
Well,
saying on that
I
one.
mean, people.
We'd still have the same problems. People would just be a whole lot more polite, and I think that's what everybody is really gnawing at the, at the bit about with society, is that every person you meet, you're rolling the dice on if it's going to be a knockdown drag out for anything.
Yeah,
It's
especially on the internet.
Well, no, because eventually the internet consumes everything from reality until it
Mhm.
becomes reality.
That's a good way of putting it.
Look at everything that the internet has killed and continues to kill. I mean, look at the plethora that was Radio Shack, the thing that makes more internet. It killed
Yeah.
it. It is a virus. It is a self-sustaining human-made virus that we have inflicted on ourselves only because we don't properly wield it.
Well, I mean, I'm very much against regulating stuff or sort of helping the dumb from doing dumb things. It's like, like 100%
Well, no.
against.
That's why I say the internet is a blessing and a curse. But if we've already leaned full tilt on stupid and we didn't control stupid from the beginning, then let them eat chicken with NyQuil in it. It's called natural
Yeah, I saw that.
selection.
I saw
You know
that.
what I'm
I
saying?
was like,
The ones that
oh
are
my.
eating, little Timmy that ate Tide Pods as a kid. Guess what he didn't get to do? Grow up to have more kids. It's called natural selection, people.
Well, in those
If you
cases,
don't
it's
learn from it and you repeat it, well, then you're in the same boat as little Timmy. You don't
well,
grow up to have more kids of your own.
I can't say about other countries, but it comes down to everything. Anytime some tragedy happens, or this or that, or we need to solve these problems with like regulation. Like, we got to regulate the internet. Oh, TikTok should ban videos of people boiling their chicken in NyQuil, which strangely kind of sounds good, but
Oh
obviously it's a
God.
dumb thing to do.
No,
Um,
it heating it up
the
changes the
problem
whole
is
chemical
you're
composition and
raising you're raising kids, who then become adults who don't have
mm.
basic critical thinking skills.
No.
Like,
That's the
that's not a
problem
good
right
idea.
there. We as a generation are projecting that down onto this generation. Ain't none of them been raised. Any of them that have been raised has been residual
What do you mean by that?
by matter of circumstance, not by matter of privilege.
I
we
still don't
were
get
we were privileged to be brought up in the way that we were, better for worse, in
it. Yeah,
comparison to our ancestors, and then we've kind of peaked that out and sloped it down. You know what I'm saying?
I would agree with that. It's well, I mean, it's kind of the thing with humanity. I mean, we're very smart. We can create nuclear weapons. Are we mature enough to wield the tools we create?
Right.
Probably not.
Exactly. Should we even have nuclear weapons? No. The
Well,
fact
that's
that
the
we
thing, though.
let
We can't.
nuclear weapons get out to the rest of the world, that's a double no.
Well, the one thing about humans, though, it's like if it can be made, it will be made.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah,
for
yeah.
example, people they've already sort of preemptively said, okay, you can't do genetic engineering, you
Oh,
can't choose designer babies,
where
you
is that
can't clone
still
people.
legal? Where is that still legal?
China,
No.
where?
There's actually regulation against stuff like that openly in China. Not to say it's not happening behind closed doors. Australia,
Oh,
Australia didn't.
interesting.
They didn't sign in with that.
I even disagree with it. It's what is the point of banning technology? If it can be done, it will be done.
Well, the thing
Let
that I
me
thought was so fascinating on that
let me
was that they.
let me chime in just for a quick second. I wanted to just put my 2 cents in just for a quick second, then I'll let you guys have the floor. But I kind of understand what the cameraman is saying, and that is because, to quote Spider-Man, a movie from or quote from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility.
This is
And
true.
technology has unleashed so much, and then especially in the dot-com era, it
Mhm.
unleashed so quickly that we really didn't understand the power in which we were wielding. And that's
Yes.
why there was so many things that came up so quickly. There were the porn sites, there were the, everything that just came out of nowhere.
Well, just think about all the shady stuff that you can imagine happening on the internet now was happening like
Well,
to the infinite like
But here's
degree
but here's
before.
but here's also what I'm going to tell you why it became so. There was a time in technology where people didn't like to share ideas. That's why when you start
Mhm.
coming up with Reddit, when people come up with Reddit and all these other things, these other sites,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
because there were people who were programming and they didn't want people to know how to go in and fix code. And that is what birthed viruses, because they would put something in there. And if someone said, hey, if you
Yeah.
get rid of me, I'm going to go in behind the scenes when you fire me and just take the whole system down, because I don't want anybody else to know how to fix things if things go
And
bad.
like I've said this to anybody that programs, any good programmer worth their salt always programs a backdoor
Backdoor.
in for remote access so that you can
Absolutely.
repair on the fly.
Absolutely.
Oh, don't tell that to Brian though. But don't you go after those
Well,
people?
we'll see. That's the thing. But we're not even with cybersecurity. We're still not. There's ethical hackers that go in and try to find these vulnerabilities, so
Hmm.
that when you have these firms that are in cybersecurity that are always, trying to put in these intrusions to find any weaknesses or vulnerabilities, we are still so far behind the curve when it comes to those types of things. That's why you start seeing these new companies coming up and say, oh, we found the newest vulnerability. This is why you should use us to do this or scan that and all this kind
Oh,
of stuff.
I'm always waiting for the newest 0 day.
In the very first one, and there was one just recently where everybody was using Solar Winds. Solar Winds was
Mhm.
like the leading company and what they did. And when they got hacked because they got caught with their pants down, nobody uses Solar
Because
Winds
they
anymore.
were, I think they got Log4j exploited.
Yes, they did. Log4j.
Yo, I was tearing up Minecraft servers with that. Oh, I was mining so much little kid salt off of that, man. I come onto your server, I'm just looking around, seeing how things are going. Oh, you're the owner and you're just acting a fool and everything else. Guess what? Now I'm God and your server's gone.
Right. Okay, you guys can have it back.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with it. I mean, as a scientist, I could never see. It's unfathomable, this idea that like a government could say you can't research that or you can't do that. It's
Well,
what
he-
makes us
here
unique is our technology. I mean, we are
here
very
here's
creative
an
people.
here's an ethical
Not me, but
question on that one,
humans.
because there's still a country out there that openly has it legal for anybody that wants to use that area of practice for human genetics and stuff like that, cloning.
I gonna be.
Does a cloned person have rights?
Well, I'm waiting for the day when the question comes to AI: Is it alive? Does it have rights?
Oh, one
Well, we'd
second.
have to determine if it's alive first.
Well, let me
Well,
let me share this with you real quick, and I'm hoping Megan is still in the chat. And then this is way off of what you guys are talking about, but you are talking about AI. There's a movie that is coming out called Megan, and if you guys haven't seen the trailer for it, it's so creepy, and it's about an AI companion for this little girl who just lost her parents, and it's trippy, but
well,
funny that it was named Megan.
I know what I'm doing this weekend. I'm gonna grab the trailer, do a deep fake, and just put Megan's face on there.
Ooh.
That would be so funny. That would be so funny.
I don't know. Megan might get offended by that.
And that's another area that's a problem with our overall, I'm just gonna say our overall global society, even though it's not a united society. We're all still, responsible for our own well beings as a global society. But if we're not very, too careful and we weaponize AI, what happened? What's to stop it from looking at us as a whole as a target?
Yeah. Well, we need the three laws. The three laws, right?
That if it's real AI, it has the same limits and boundaries, consciously that you do, which means you can do whatever the fuck you want, which means given its playground is our digital infrastructure that we've created over the last 100 years for it, we are in its petri dish.
Well, assuming that we don't bomb ourselves back into the dark ages,
I think we'd have to get rid of something like that.
but I think in the 21st century, this is going to be a question. Like, we're going to have to redefine what life is. I mean, if AI gets advanced enough to think, which is the ultimate goal of what these people are doing, and
Right. At what point do we have to seriously have some, like closed door congressional hearings about is this or is this not a threat?
well, that's what's going to be interesting.
Forget
Though.
about forget about the can we wield it or anything else long term, full long term here. Is this a threat?
Well, I mean, the way I figure, like we were talking before, I mean, humans first looked at the stars. Now we can build our own stars right here on planet Earth.
Yeah, not for very
Wait,
long though.
but
But
wait, till
yeah.
we are such a smart species. It's not going to be that long until we are the creators and we create life. And
Right.
of course, that's going to put a lot of things in question. I mean, it maybe even put religion in question. Like, what does that even mean now? I mean,
The magic man
we
looking the
are
overbearing
the
father
gods now.
figure that lives in the sky, that was debunked a long time ago.
Yeah, well, not the flying spaghetti monster, though.
No. What is it? Pastafarians are a real thing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Don't mess with
in
my religion. The
in
beer volcano is real.
in the infinite universe, right? Whether it's multiverse or a single metaverse, everything happens. So the spaghetti monster, along with God, everything else, they're all out there somewhere. It just
And a
matters on
celestial teapot.
right. It's all out there in an infinite universe. If we can
Well,
all just agree that the universe is infinite, it coalesces the theory of all religions, and we can
see,
stop
that's what's
fighting.
interesting, though. The universe is not infinite.
No. All we got to do is tell them that it is, and then show them how it all links up to everybody else, and we can stop fighting. See,
Well, if we
that's
can't,
world peace.
if we can't tell them, I'm sorry, not even tell them. If we can't show them things which are demonstrably true, and they still don't believe it, then lying to them. I mean, why would they believe that? I don't know what it is.
Because if they don't, just like little Timmy, they don't get to grow up and have children of their own.
I found that the internet, being on the internet and just being on YouTube for less than a year has really shown me it. There are things which I think anybody my age just would know or would catch, just normal stuff. Like I don't think it's really that big of a deal to realize, okay, this person's argument doesn't make any sense. But no, no,
Right.
it's like what? It's like you're talking like a child.
No. It's the screeching retard defense. All I gotta do is hit you with enough stupid in a short enough period of time, and you become dumber as a result. And eventually, the capacitance laws will come into play and will even out.
I don't know. That's why I tell my wife, I just want to move to like Montana. I don't want anybody around me. I just don't want to deal with it. It's like I give up. I give up. You guys win. You guys win. You want to believe that? That's fine.
Yeah,
Just
well, then
leave me out of it.
think about how you're consuming your media, though. You can be anywhere and just turn off everything you're consuming, and you'd never even be aware of it.
This is true. This is true. But we're all guilty of this. I think I don't. There must be some evolutionary reason why humans love to watch a dumpster fire. There's got to be a reason for it.
Because it's free entertainment that we have no foreseeable direct skin in that game.
But why do we find it so entertaining? Sometimes my guilty pleasure is the show 90 Day Fiance, which when I tell my colleagues, they're like, "Really, you watch that?" I'm like, "Come on, we all got to have some guilty pleasure." And I sometimes ask myself, "It's like, why am I so curious about? I hate this guy, Big Ed. I hate him. I don't want anything to do with him. I think he's a moron, but I need to watch him do more stupid things on 90 Day Fiance. I know it's scripted. but it's still
No, see,
I can't
that
stop watching.
that's where terrestrial TV turns off a lot of people when they try to portray scripted entertainment as
Mhm.
spontaneous entertainment. And that's why we look for venues like Twitch, YouTube,
Mhm.
Rumble, whatever, because we're getting spontaneity instead of the scripted bullshit that we can all obviously see.
Oh, this I
Or
100%
you're a
agree with.
window licking moron and you can't see it, and then you just progressively get dumber as a result.
I mean, I will admit this, that, probably for the last few months, I found the dumpster fires on YouTube much more
Oh,
interesting to watch.
yes,
Like, I come home and say, "Whoa, what's
yes.
gonna go on today's episode?" But my question is, like, why is it so interesting? Like, it doesn't affect me. It
That's why it's so interesting. Is because you can self-emulate through it without it ever having any effect physically.
But even then, like, I know it's bad, and not just because, I'm not just saying, like, there's some, like, moral standard this, but with some of these reality shows going on YouTube, it's like, well, if nobody was watching, the problem would take care of itself.
Yes.
But
But just like in, what is it, Guardians of the
it's on
Galaxy,
fire.
we have an abundance of morons.
Yes.
Natural selection has been mitigated, and we have an abundance and backup of morons.
Like,
Not to say there aren't some innocent people in there. Natural selection does not discriminate. If you're at the wrong place at wrong time, you're done. You're done.
have you seen this show? And maybe people in the chat, the Connors. It's the one which came after, when
Oh
they said,
yeah, okay, yeah.
and so I kid you not, me and my wife recorded to intentionally watch it and not laugh because it's so bad. Like, it's so bad.
Well, it's not comical. It's preaching. It's bland in
It's
respect
not
to
even
what it was.
it's not even good preaching. I mean, some of the
Right.
lessons are just ridiculous. But I really want to meet somebody who likes the Connors. Like, what do you
Okay.
like about it?
Think
Do you
think
actually laugh?
think about the era where that TV show actually comes from, and I'll
Mhm,
point over to like The Fresh Prince because it was kind of like side by side. While
mhm.
one was more openly comical, it had periodic serious episodes. While this one was running on the same recipe where it was mostly comical with some serious episodes, and then this time they just went full tilt on the serious.
Yeah, it's
It
not
played
even.
off more like a daytime soap opera than it did a late evening sitcom.
Well, that's what actually kind of bothers me about it because I read reviews about, like, oh, we're cutting edge with this, we're touching the issues which matter. Um, like,
To who though?
yeah,
That's the thing you gotta ask. Oh, these issues matter. To
it's like
who?
the writers haven't. They must have just come right out of USC, like, never worked in
Yes.
their life. Like, this character Darlene, who's, now is trying to be the star of the show. So there's this episode where, okay, so all of a sudden she has enough money to buy a house. How doesn't matter. And
Yeah,
this
let's talk
episode,
about some issues that matter. How does she have a
no,
house
but
in this economy?
they did talk about the issues with matter because so she gets pre-approved for a loan, so that's why she's house shopping, right? Okay, so she's great credit, she's house shopping. She finds the house she wants. Okay, I'll put an offer on this house. And the real estate agent tells her, no, you can't put an offer on the house because you're not married, because the owners thinks that women who are single mothers won't be able to pay the mortgage. And I'm like, but she's pre-approved for a loan. You don't
Yeah,
pay the previous loan. And, like,
that's
how did this leave the writer's room?
that's injecting unnecessary tropes to progress a storyline.
Yeah, that's
That's done
exactly what they do.
that's very sloppily. We need a MacGuffin here, and we don't know how to
Yeah,
make it happen, so we'll just inject it and work with it.
but you could have wrote it better. Like, I don't know, maybe they're renting a house, right? Okay, I'm going to rent a house,
Right.
and this person doesn't want to rent to a single person. That makes, but you start
Right.
the episode with, I'm pre-approved for a loan, which I don't know when she ever works, but and but the owner won't sell to a single mother. Like, no, the owner, when the loan goes, they get the payment of their house.
Right.
It's the bank's problem then.
Exactly.
Or, this week's episode was so ridiculous. I mean, it was just. Oh, this other one where, okay, so Dan gets married, right? So he remarries this person, and the other thing I
Right.
noticed about the show, every week they have different characters.
My,
Uh,
but how what? Dan's dead, bro.
No, that was just a dream.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. No, but like the original Roseanne was, I got into it because my wife likes it. I never watched it when I was a kid.
So later on, what they're gonna do is be like, this is Roseanne's like coma dream when she had a stroke after Dan died.
Yeah. And the other thing is so ridiculous. Okay, so Roseanne, the actress, said a bad thing. Okay, fine. You get her off the show. Now on the set, they have pictures of everybody, the whole family.
Mm-hmm.
But the Becky and Darlene, there are no pictures of their late mother. Like that doesn't make any sense.
Well, they can't use her likeness for
For
for outside money reasons. So they can't show her actually, even though she's why wouldn't she be in those photos, right?
exactly.
Which
And
which tears more of that wallpaper off that they're trying to put up and, pose as a entertainment. It's I don't even know what to call it. It's not even entertainment anymore.
no, that's what I want to meet somebody who actually watches the Connors and is entertained by it, because it like so. I also watched the show La Brea. I don't know if you've seen it. Now that one is so bad that it's hilarious to watch.
Well,
It's
only
funny.
because I'm a semi-educated fool. La Brea, the only La Brea I know of is the La Brea tar pits.
Yeah.
So I'm going to guess it ties into that somehow. I'm going to guess some sort of sci-fi rift in reality, space-time or something.
Yeah, a sinkhole opens and everybody who is in La Brea falls into it, and then it's just basically a lost remake. But
Oh,
it
well,
throws logic out the window. So like now they're on their second season, and it's funny. I went on.
then it's not Lost, it's Land of the Lost.
It kind of is. And in fact, I went. I mean, it's so bad. Like,
Yeah, but are you just looking at it from the wrong angle though and trying to be serious about it? Looking at it
no,
as
no.
Lost
That's
instead
why
of Land of the Lost?
that's why it's entertaining. It's like if you just shut your brain off and go, okay. Like last
Yeah.
week or 2 weeks ago, apparently there's this prehistoric rhinoceros which hunts the humans. Okay, fine. But then the rhinoceros has eyes on the side of its head, not in the front, and you're calling it a predator. That doesn't make any sense. Animals with the eyes on the side, they don't charge in front. I mean, we have eyes in the front because we're predators. Cats
Yes.
have eyes in the front, and it's like, but
Yes.
it
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
doesn't make me angry because I find it funny. It's like, oh, let's just throw signs off the window. Fine, it's funny.
I
And the
know,
acting is
right?
so bad.
But that's the thing right there. You knowing these things can point out the hypocrisy in the charade. Just like
Mhm.
what I mentioned earlier about the little nitpicky things about me being an explosives engineer, seeing what I saw on 9/11 going, anybody that believes this is a fucking moron.
Well, I know a thing or two about explosives, and like I said, we on that radio show where they were trying to debunk it. I reduced it to this very simple physics equation. What goes in must come out. What goes in must come out.
Right, right. But my quarrel is with the 3 implosions, the 3 controlled demolitions when they had no time to set up explosives to do that kind of a demolition. I needed and wanted to see, and I had my popcorn fucking popped and waiting once I saw what was going on, for the top of one of these buildings to spill over onto the streets where all these fucking gawkers were watching.
Oh yeah, I still remember that day. It was because I saw the first
I
one.
was
Fire.
chewing popcorn waiting for maximum carnage, and what I saw was less than adequate. No.
Yeah, no, I mean to this day I can't watch it. It's just especially using airplanes like that. But
No, wait. Look at
here-
what is it? Iran and Russia are doing with their jets? Look at what they're doing now.
well, that's our fault.
They're turning them into drones.
Well, because we decided to pull out of the Iran deal, which everybody thought were just being nice to Iran. It was like,
Actually, we have the capability for a standing declaration of war against Iran.
well, that's
From when they did that missile barrage on that base in Iraq. What was it,
Mhm.
like 4 or 5 years ago? When
I
they
think
did that?
no, I think it was only like 2 years ago. It was right
But
at
yeah, it was
yeah,
recent. It was
yeah.
recent. But that right there, that's you can declare war on that.
Well,
They openly attacked an American target. the Iranian military did.
I
Not in
think
their country or anything else. They didn't deny it, or they openly. We have a declaration of war just waiting right there for Iran.
well, what I think the U.S. should do, because you heard that there are Iranian soldiers helping Russia with
Mm-hmm.
well, again, you have like such this great army, and you're getting drones from Iran, like
No,
what?
that's why we all know. We all know. We don't know if Russia knows it yet, but if they didn't have nukes, or what it's looking like more and more is just the threat of
Mhm.
nukes, that they are sitting fucking ducks for anybody that wants to walk in and say, get in the cattle cars.
Well, the thing about nuclear weapons, going back to it, is they're complex machines. Here in the United
Not
States,
really, though. It's
no, but
just availability of resources and
well,
knowing what you're doing.
to take to take care of them, they're not the kind of weapons where you can just
Oh, yeah,
sit there
yeah, to
and store
maintain
them.
them, yes. Which is why
Uh,
I don't think Russia actually has any capable nuclear missiles.
I
They may
I
still
don't
have
think so either.
nuclear bombs. I don't think they have any capable nuclear missiles.
No, I mean, here in the United States, it was funny when the last president appointed, what was the name? Last governor, Rick Perry, to
Mm,
be head of the Department of Energy. Rick Perry famously said, "Oh, I'd get rid of the Department of Energy." Then he became head of the Department of Energy, and of course, he got probably a very high level security briefing and found out what the Department of Energy actually does. And the Department of Energy, they do what's called it's this policy we have called the endurance stockpile. We
mhm.
don't test nuclear weapons anymore, but we maintain them. And every year, the DOE and this comes right out of Los Alamos, where we built the
Yep.
first bomb, has to sign a letter to the president saying these weapons will work if used.
Yes, yes. They have
And
to maintain a standard of operational
yes,
awareness. They
and
have to. It's dictated by law.
yep, and that costs a lot of money.
People wonder why our military or national defense budget is like everybody else's combined, is because if you're thinking about it slightly outside of the box, it's because out of all the countries that actually have nuclear weapons, I kind of think we're the only ones that are actually maintaining them.
Yeah, I don't know if I and it, I just
North Korea is desperately trying to make one, but even then, they don't have to maintain what they don't have.
exactly. And I mean, what little I do know about physics, maintaining them costs a lot of money, costs a lot of manpower. I mean, we have an entire lab dedicated to it. I mean, the kind of
Yes.
stuff which we do there, we basically, it's kind of like if it, if you could guarantee this, like my car will work without ever driving it, so you just test every
Right,
single
right.
part of it, and then do these sort of what they
But
call
e but
deterministic
even
calculations.
then, that's not a guaranteed 100% that it will actually work. That's just saying that all systems appear to be correct and operational. It
Yeah, well, I mean,
should work.
there is more to it than that, but my point is though, it's I mean, in fact, the University of Las Vegas actually has a master's program for people who just say, well, I'm going to spend my life taking care of nuclear weapons. And you know what, if I'd known that that was available to me, then I'd be in heaven. You mean I can just take care of
I
nuclear
think
weapons?
that's maintained and operated by the United States Air Force, right?
No, Department of Energy.
The DOE, huh?
Because it used to be called the atomic something, but yeah, I
Atomic
mean,
Energy Commission?
no, no, no. No, it was called I forgot what it was, but then it became the Department of Energy. And that's why, anytime politicians talk about it, they think the Department of Energy is the one which doesn't let us drill in Alaska.
No.
Just because they hear the word energy, it's like, no, Department of
Oh.
Energy they're one of
They
there's a
run
reason
on
why
what energy we already have. They don't look for new energy.
no, and they're very involved in defense. That's where they came from. And that's
Yes.
why they get such a huge budget.
Now, the
They run our
people that
national
won't let
labs.
you drill is the Department of Natural Resources.
Exactly.
Even I, a layman, public school educated with some dabbling in everything in college, but even I, as a layman, know these things.
Megan says her dad was a step pilot, so I'm flying my airplane now. um, um, I mean, even the lab which I'm doing my research at is run by the Department of Energy. It they run. Mine is Jefferson Lab. They have Los Alamos. They have Fermi Lab, and the other thing the Department of Energy does is they do a lot of medicine. A lot of medical technology comes out of the Department of Energy. MRIs
Well,
came out of the Department of Energy.
let's uncover the really ugly Band-Aid before we go any deeper into that. And the reason that they got into medicine was to get rid of their ever so growing stockpile of nuclear fucking waste, and they convinced the medical industry to inject it into people.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, even accelerators like the Stanford Linear Accelerator, most of its applications are medicine. But it's run by the Department of Energy. Megan thinks I'm weird. I am weird. I have a fetish for nuclear weapons, right? You do too, right,
Well,
cameraman?
I have a fetish for physics, the natural evolution of how everything works. I'm a
Let me
monkey. I'm a primate by nature. I
let me let
tinker with
me
things
let
until I
me
understand them.
let me interrupt you to fetish seeking nuclear physicist over here. Just say that
Let me get my phone.
only the two of you would probably use the word fetish and physicist in the same sentence.
Brian, if you ever come to a party at my house, I have this Blu-ray disc, which is just 2 hours of 4K Nevada test site videotapes of explosions, and I put it on, and all the TVs in my house during the party have it going on. Of course, my other weird and we just like, look at that! Oh my God, look at that shockwave!
Is that
It's a fetish.
is that why everybody leaves your house drunk as hell?
Yeah, and that's generally why people like Megan just said you're weird. Like I start talking, and they're like,
Well,
okay,
she
I'm gonna
said
go over here now.
you said step pilot, and she said that's weird when you said step pilot.
Oh, I meant stepdad. Apparently I'm off now, so my multitasking skills are a little bit
Mm.
because I was reading the chat and talking at the same time, so we came out.
Oh,
Hey
you
man,
can't do that.
it's
You'll
my
get lost
time.
in the chat.
It's my
Usually I'm good
day.
at it.
It's
Just
my
not
day
today.
to keep up with the chat. You just chat. I'm keeping up with the chat. I'm
I
enjoying this over
I
here.
got two modes. I can either be on the stream or I can be semi-trolling in the chat. I can't do both at the same time. I gotta focus on one or the other.
We should plan a date where we can go somewhere and uh troll channels, because if it's done right, I don't even think it's that bad. Like you don't have to be cruel about it, but it can be really fucking funny.
Oh, and speaking of like nuclear waste, let's just talk about the inefficiency of what we do with these uranium rods when they're done for their intended purposes, but still have a completely viable purpose for a lower style reactor that runs off the heat dissipation on a
Mhm.
Stirling engine. You just convert cold air to hot air, which spins the fucking wheel.
Well, and on that same note, we spent billions of dollars building that depository at Yucca Flat to put all the nuclear waste.
That'll come back to pay dividends, though.
Well, but then all the hippies and even
Yeah.
oh, we're not going to do it. So, I have a nuclear power plant. We have one down south, closer to San Diego, and you think it's safer to just have the spent rods sitting there in a pool?
No,
It's like there's a
that's
reason why we
increasing.
want to bury them.
Well, the more concentrated they are in a more confined area, that's how you get nuclear meltdown.
Yep.
They should be spread out. They should be broken down,
And
or they could be remagnetically refined.
yeah,
Get rid of the waste and then
there
reuse
are
the new rods.
quite a few. I mean, I've read quite a bit about this, like, trying to find, ways to still extract more energy from these spent fuel rods. It's like, okay, so they're not going to
Now,
work in the reactor anymore, but
right.
also storing them. It's like that water has to be continuously recycled. And
No. So the water just has to be continuously heat dissipated.
yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. Like it's got to, you can't, you got to
You
get
can use a closed loop earth grounding for the heat dissipation, and you could use the heat that it's giving off connected to hot air engines. Like mini steam turbines. They just run on the difference between hot air and cold air, if you know what a Stirling engine is.
yeah, no, I do.
The heat that they give off is still more than enough to run those. It's just not enough to run the super huge generator when they were going at full bore anymore.
Or even, I mean, you even just, I mean, any use of the heat,
Yes.
I mean, in fact,
As long as they're still kicking off heat, they're still viable. It's just a matter of how you use it.
Yeah, exactly. And there's this thing called they call it the Seebach effect. Like for example, our Voyager space probes, they have a pellet of uranium
Mm-hmm.
and it gives off heat, and you can use that to generate
Thrust in a
electric
vacuum.
no electricity.
Isn't the byproduct of what they're doing electricity? They're doing it for the thrust, but the byproduct is electricity.
Yeah, no, it's if you have heat, you can always convert heat into electricity because what you do is essentially very much like the principles behind a Stirling engine is if you have a temperature differential,
Yes.
create a potential there, and you can extract well electricity from it, and that's how they power the Voyager spacecraft. In fact, after the fall of the Soviet Union, one of the things the United States did do is they wanted to collect these uranium pellets because the Russians were using the same idea to provide power for their silos. Because then you don't have to be on a
Right.
power grid, and it would be immune to the effects of an electromagnetic pulse. Of course, if you have a gas water heater in your house, you already have one of these devices which does that. It's called a thermocouple.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it knows whether the gas is burning or the gas is shut off, and it shuts off the valve. And again, in my general physics 1 class, we build one. It's kind of cool. It's fun. Yes, I'm multitasking.
Now,
And banana
going back to the EMP you just mentioned, anybody that still, and this is probably nobody, but I do, anybody that still has tube-based technology, that stuff will still work. That will even power your tubes and make them more energized for a period of time. So you won't have to warm them up. They will be plenty warm already.
I have this Fender Tweed amp, and I need to replace the tubes in it. And the tubes which it uses come from Russia, and they're on eBay, but they're really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that or they have I don't really actually know how it works. This thing called bubble memory.
I've heard.
Yeah, well, instead of using integrated circuits, it is basically a random access device. I mean, this is what they had for this space program and stuff like that. But apparently, it's supposed to be immune. Of course, here in the United States, we just shield our stuff. It's like, yeah, well,
Yeah, but remember, even though your stuff is shielded, it's all still hooked into this worldwide mesh of a network. And anything that gets in from any open point, it will then travel said network.
True. Which, ironically, the internet itself, one of the reasons why universities used to use it. I mean, the whole, not the World Wide Web, but it was called something else back then. Maybe Brian knows. Was so universities could share ideas, and then the United States said, well, this is also a communication system because it's not centralized in case of nuclear war. Well, we could use this thing called the internet.
So before the internet, there was the FTP sites where you can pass over information, and then there were
that was still a form of. Well, I'm sorry, those weren't internets; those were intranets.
Intranets, yes, the intranets. Yep, that's exactly right.
Those were dialable or connectable, like just cluster networks. I mean, realistically, that's all the internet is. It's just all those cluster networks reporting to the DNS so that they all share the same locations, so they don't overlap, and then voila, you're all.
It was
in the
a
same
push
network.
or a pull communication.
Yes.
It was not a push-pull communication.
Right. You couldn't duplex.
That's what it was called. ARPANET came from, I guess, what was before DARPA. 1969, they started developing it. Oh, look, UCLA. And then I think the idea of the world, or the stuff about the World Wide Web, I thought that came from CERN.
No, that was a DARPA think tank idea.
Well, I always thought it was Al Gore who invented the internet, but
no, he takes credit. The reason that he says that he invented the internet he means or what he's referring to, and nefariously trying to take credit for the whole thing. But what he's talking about is the bills and legislation that pushed for the development of the infrastructure that would and did become the internet.
Yeah, which I don't understand why sometimes Congress is against bringing high-speed internet to the middle of the country. It's like,
Because just
I
like
talk to people
before,
online,
remember
I'm like, why is your internet so bad? I don't get
remember how we mitigated natural selection, where you
Mhm.
got a lot of an excess of stupid people?
it. We're keeping it from them.
I'm not saying all, but they tend to live in very rural areas.
Yeah, they do. They do. It's
I'm not saying that's always the case. I'm just saying they tend to live in very rural areas if they're a large clan by themselves, or if they're smaller clans, they tend to huddle together in hovels known as trailer parks, cul-de-sacs. I mean, everywhere. I come from poor moving around people, man. I know. I got taught real young about the wilds of the world and how to
see,
stay alive.
when I was a kid, where we grew up was one of the first cities to get coaxial internet. Like,
Oh, like what year? Like what kind of time frame?
this would have been like maybe 92.
Oh, you lucky fucker.
And of course, I told my parents, "I go, we have to have this."
Yeah, I
And
bet you ain't got the budget for it.
well, they're like, "Oh, whatever. I don't know what that is." So, and that's the other thing which kind of pisses me off. Um, just like a few weeks ago, I got a message from my current provider, which of course is coaxial. Oh, you're using too much bandwidth. I'm like, well, back in '92, nobody cared. That was the whole point of cable modem, unlimited bandwidth. Because before I had this dial-up thing or something like, not
Well,
CompuServe.
yeah. Well, they're always on, always accessible, always maximum bandwidth. It's like, yes, this bandwidth that I'm leasing from you doesn't have a cap on it. It has a speed cap, not a data cap. You can have one or the other, a data cap or a speed cap.
Well, even the speed before, like even in my neighborhood now, when I moved here, you get cable internet and everybody gets the same speed, and it was really high speed. But now all of a sudden, it's like, well, if you want higher speed, you got to pay extra. Which,
Mm-hmm.
being a fancy pants physicist, I'm like, okay, so I know for a fact that the transmission speed of a coax cable is set. Like you can't send one thing through a cable slower than another. It
Right. It's all modulated.
Yeah, so exactly. And so I'm like, okay, let me and it turns out that the cable box for my whole street just happens to be in my backyard for some reason.
Oh,
I don't know why.
nice.
And so I popped it open and freaking filter there. There's a filter there which is
Oh.
tourniqueting it coming into the house. I'm like, so I'm paying you to remove this filter?
No, literally all you gotta do is bypass it. All you
Yeah.
gotta do is literally hollow the sucker out with a drill, put a soldered piece of just copper
Oh yeah.
wire,
Oh, I
solid
know.
copper wire to connect both ends, and then it just becomes a pass through. It looks the exact same, but it just becomes a pass through. Ooh,
Which of
because
course I
it's
did
metal
not do.
casing, it's shielded.
I did not do that. No, I didn't do that.
I've done that once or twice.
I'm just looking around, you know. I am on the internet now. They could be listening.
Oh, I don't care. Okay, so in my front yard is the trunk fiber line for my ISP. Literally not on the easement, it goes through my front yard.
We don't have fiber yet.
So every now and then when they're giving me hassles, I'm like, guys, I can literally go out there and shut everybody's internet off. All I gotta do is start digging.
I've thought about that before. Like,
It's like, don't. Just keep my internet on. It keeps me barking at the trolls online. Don't make me focus on you.
what I
You
don't
won't like it.
understand is now that the internet, because of this high bandwidth, it allows us to do
Why you
things
keep
like we're
going on their
doing right
property?
now. It allows us to stream movies and this. So now you decide to put a data cap?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
what?
Now, well, what happened is everybody has cell phones, but they didn't realize they were on the substandard data networks. It's not
Mhm,
like your fixed data connection at home where you're within arm's reach of the transmission tower.
mhm.
Now you're relying on leased transmission towers that have a set amount of bandwidth, and they're trying to supply everybody.
Yeah. Oh, even freaking HDTV. Like when HDTV came out, Like I was an early adopter of it, and it looked freaking amazing.
Ooh, why? Were you in Japan? Because
Well,
that's
no,
where I came from. If
no,
you were a kid in the 80s and you got a Japanese imported flat screen TV, it was still two, but it was flat and it
yeah,
did HD and it had all these connections on the back of it. It still had your RGB and your composites and stuff like that, but then it had this DVI thing on the back of it, and you're like, I've never seen or heard of anything like this before. And then once you actually do pump a proper signal through it, you're like, oh my lord.
it looks really nice. But also, when I first got HD, there were like 4 HD channels. I mean, I get watching Breakfast. They had this nature one. It was just this beautiful scenery, and it looks so fresh. Now, of course, they pump everything through there, and it looks all compressed. And there's
That's because it is.
yeah, it looks like crap. It's just like music. Uh,
Yes.
Ever since MP3s and all of that came down, it's like the general public just sort of got trained that this is what a recording should sound like, not realizing this sounds worse than it did before.
Well, it depends on how it was recorded and compressed.
Hmm.
If you do raw variable bitrate audio, it will sound indistinguishable from the original recording. Now, if you toss a ton of compression on it to keep the file size down and you don't care about the fidelity, you'll still get the same song. You
Yeah, but
just
it'll sound like crap.
it'll sound like it was compressed
Yeah,
though.
you get all those artifacts. I blame Napster for that because I mean the whole idea was to
Oh,
make it
but
sound like
bro, it was free. You can't beat free.
it's true. Oh yeah,
In that era,
Napster.
think about this, Columbia House and everybody else that was milking us for these CDs and
oh
everything
yeah.
else. Dude,
Na-
as soon as we figured out how to share that stuff, dude, it was on.
Napster was the first internet billionaire. And,
Hmm.
and and it was and there's a
Illegal
story. Well,
internet
illegal.
billionaire.
There's a story behind the guys at Napster. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it because I think it was like
I
3
think
or
I have
4 of
seen
them,
that.
And imagine
and
that whole thing
some
came
of them,
tumbling down because
yes,
Lars is a bitch.
because some of them went to prison, and some of them are still fugitives because they went to
Uh-huh.
some country with no extradition and all that kind of stuff, and they are still wanted because of what they were doing with Napster and all the legal battles.
Well, those stupid record companies, just like
Mm-hmm.
everything. Like I think right now this is happening with the cable companies. It's like you
Yep.
have to evolve with the technology, and they try to sue themselves into profitability. Oh, I'm going to sue the
Yes.
grandmother.
Yes.
It doesn't work, and of course, it did turn out. I mean, I think Apple was the one which said, "Okay, well, let's just stop that now." Um, if you want a really good file quality, it's like 99 cents, and I was like,
Yeah,
"Yes."
if you offer a reasonable price for availability that anyone can buy into,
Hmm.
Let me
the people will do it.
let me circle back to what we were talking about before when you guys were saying about the internet and how we build it this type of stuff to people without trying to regulate and all this kind of stuff. No matter who you are, Microsoft, people are going to hate Microsoft. They're going to try to find vulnerabilities, ways to attack it, ways to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
The big entities, whether it be movie conglomerates or record executives or record companies, people are going to always find ways to stick it to them. And
Oh yeah, yeah. If there's a
torrents,
flaw in the system, they're gonna exploit it.
torrents are still big right now. You can download movies, you can download,
That's because
and
you
that's
can't really
regardless
get rid of
of all the
torrents
protections.
because torrent is a technology. It's not a type of file,
No,
which
but
is what people mistake.
yeah, well, so they
It's a
gather,
method.
they
It's not
get
a
they
thing.
get packets of data from multiple
Mm-hmm.
sources, and they consolidate it all into one single file. Now, here's the deal, though: copyright infringement and all those types of laws still come into play for those who are caught sharing the data. If
Well,
you just have the data sitting on your computer, that technically is not a crime.
no, no,
But
it's
it
just
is
it falls under the
sharing the
preservation
data,
clause.
right? It's only sharing the data that is
And
the
I'd argue
crime.
that even then, as long as you're not profiting, as long as there's literally no money involved, they won't do anything to you. They only care as long as there's money involved.
Well,
Yeah, I got.
before VPNs came out and they were really kind of buckling down, I dare you. I dare you right now to try to download a torrent file on your network provider without a VPN. They will send
Without
you.
using my VPN
They will.
or my virtual machine, fuck
They
you.
will.
Oh,
They will send you immediately. They will say, "Hey, you're downloading some illegal stuff. You better. We will shut you
you
Bro,
know,
off, bro."
I got one of those letters from my cable provider.
I have
No,
never
it
got
was
one
so
of
no.
those, and
I
I
had to
pirate everything.
I had to download. Like, this is just for Flight Simulator, so there's nothing illegal. It's
Right,
free
right.
satellite imagery to make Flight Simulator look really cool. But it was like a 3 terabyte download. So you split it up into torrents. I just get them going, and boom, they start. And so also my internet service provider sees me downloading all this stuff.
Yeah.
But what's worse than that, I threw the biggest fit over this. It was one of the few times where I'm just like, so at our university, these stupid movie companies, because students love to, use
Yeah.
BitTorrent to file,
Yep.
take down movies and stuff like that, because our freaking dorms when they were first built, they didn't have cable access, and so what our university did was brilliant, and I'm saying that sarcastically. So anytime a student opens up their computer, their private computer, if it detected LimeWire or any of that, it would
Mm,
block them out of the Wi-Fi. So this is great when I'm giving an online test because I put it up online and
right.
computers, and so people open up their computers and like 4 of them shut down.
Yeah, because you're using a torrent protocol to distribute the data.
And I was like, okay, hold on. Now, first of all, it's university Wi-Fi. We can look at anything we want. I mean, the whole point is in academia, there is no censoring of information. Second of all, these are students' computers. If they want to BitTorrent at home, that's fine. But you assume that, oh, they must be in the dorms, and you just arbitrarily decide that they're a criminal. And number three, where am I supposed to give an online test? Like, do I have to ask IT before to disable the service?
Well,
It's
so
now
but
gone now.
so
They got rid of it,
but
but
here's the deal, and I'm gonna comment on that, but then I got to tell you a story about not using a VPN or a virtual machine to download something. Um, BitTorrent and all of these share networks use ports, and you
Mhm,
have to be sophisticated in order to understand what ports that traffic is actually um, being streamed on. That's where you block ports. You don't have to block websites. Websites are so sophisticated that if you put a URL in there, they could actually mask URLs any way they want to and still get around
mhm.
those types of things. So it's always about blocking ports more. You do want to block URLs to a certain degree, but it's always about ports and what those types of things listen or communicate on. And that's the first key.
As each new protocol comes out, it gets designated a port or port
Ports, a range of ports.
a range of ports, kind of like how we divvy up the FCC radio spectrum,
Mhm.
and that gets added to the library of ports in the DNS and operating systems and everything else.
So I got a story real quick, a funny story. I just wanted to jump on here real quick and share about not protecting yourself. So I went to Florida with my wife, my son, and some friends of ours, and we stayed at a home that the person that we went out there with was friends with the owner. In Florida, everybody owns a house and then they just release it out or rent it out to
Mhm.
whatever. And it was to the point where we could go out there and all we had to do is pay for the cleaning fee after we left. So we went out there and she had a son that was with us. We were bored one night and I had my laptop with me, wasn't paying attention, and I said I think it was some movie he wanted to see, and I was like, "Oh, I'll get that. Come on, let's watch a movie because we're bored." I downloaded it on their internet. We had a good time. By the time we get back, she's calling me, "Brian, the owner said that we were doing something illegal with their internet, and if we didn't like make sure or show proof that we deleted it, they were going to terminate his internet service." What the hell? I mean, she was
Oh my
literally
god.
freaking out.
Yeah, Florida's pretty strict about that.
Yeah, so I was
The
like,
only
"What
the
the
only time
hell?"
I've ever been flagged for anything is when I was at my grandparents in Florida and I downloaded Logan in like 2019.
Yeah, I think that was kind of close. I think
They
it was
got a phone call
219.
for that, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh shit, VPN, that's
Yeah,
right."
that's it. And I was like,
It's
I didn't mean to do it. I said it was just something that I was actually clicked on. I didn't know what it was downloading, and I said we didn't keep it, and I don't know what you want me to show you, but we deleted it, and I actually wrote
Well,
a letter to the owner of the company saying it was not used for anything, and we
Mhm.
with the way that streaming and torrent protocols work, they're almost like the opposite ends of handshakes. Uh, you don't even have to download the files anymore. You can just have the data streamed to you, and you can just
Yeah.
watch the movie while never actually having obtained said file.
Hmm.
I've done that before.
Yeah.
I mean, not recently, but this was like before we had Netflix.
Right, right. So it just shows that even though they're enforcing said laws, they're still archaic because as soon as they put something definitive in writing on paper, we just make something that goes around it.
But and this is what scares me, like, with the ideas of net neutrality and this and that. I mean, we elect these people to Congress who are supposed to sort of, deal with these new issues, and they have no idea what it is.
Yeah, they're too
And they
old.
don't
No,
know.
There are
you're right.
too
Well,
many
they know it
elected
makes
officials.
money.
There are too
Yeah, and then
old elected officials that they don't even get online themselves. They have multimedia assistants that will go out there and text for them,
mhm.
post for
Oh
them,
yeah.
do all these multimedia types of things that they don't do themselves because they don't understand. A lot of them don't even know how to use and send an email.
Mhm.
And then when you finally learn something, technology is so sophisticated that something else has already bypassed what you just learned
Yep.
2 years ago. I always give it
You
the
just learned
5-year
a
curve.
way to do it. You didn't
Right.
learn the definitive way to do it because it's never definitive. It's always evolving and changing.
Well, that's why
Yep.
it's hard for you people in IT. If I see somebody in IT who's been with a company for their entire IT career, I get a little suspect because you can learn how to do it one way and you know how to do it their way, but you don't want to understand how it actually fits in other infrastructures, how it blends with this other system. Have you worked with it and using this application? So having a well-rounded view of the technology, but also how it interacts with other technologies is
Mhm.
Oh
where
yeah,
you
yeah.
really want to be in if that's IT as a career for you.
Mhm. Absolutely. It's,
See,
um,
you start talking about technology, I can get into this conversation. You start talking about nuclear weapons and stuff, I was like, ahead.
no, that's what we just
No. Think about it. I think yeah, all of the United States nuclear weapons. It's not accessible online, is it? It can't be. There's no way. There's no
well,
way they'd put that online.
That's
well,
it.
I mean,
That's
Access,
stored
access.
that's stored in Mar-a-Lago. What are you talking about?
yeah, it's in
No,
Mar-a-Lago.
I
So
actually
somebody
think
hates the bathroom in Mar-a-Lago.
that the way that the nuclear missiles get programmed and launched is through radio frequency messaging.
They actually use really old technology.
Yes, yes, that's why I'm saying it's radio frequency messaging.
It was funny, about 4 years ago, maybe even more, 60 Minutes did this expose where they showed how our silos are using technology from, like, the '70s and the '80s.
And still
And, like,
booting off a 3 1/4 inch
not
floppy or
even
three and a
no,
half inch
Oh,
floppy.
yeah,
they used the
3.5.
big ones. Remember
Yeah,
the
the 8 inch floppies, huh?
Yeah, and, again, knowing something about how these systems work, it's like, no, you don't understand. It's like, yeah, we can make it modern just for the sake of it, which actually then introduces more
More
vulnerabilities.
flaws.
But this system works, and
Right.
it's designed in such a way you can't penetrate it. You put advanced technology in there,
Well,
you
yeah, because
still
it's
get the
air
same
gapped.
results.
It's
Yeah,
air gapped via antiquity. It's an antique in comparison to the technology we use off the consumer shelf.
absolutely. It's and the funny thing about it is that people just assume, oh, it's old, therefore it's vulnerable. It's like, no, it, it this software works, and very
Here's
few
the thing that
applications.
debunks the old so it doesn't so it's vulnerable thing. So you remember like what was it right at the start of the pandemic when New Jersey needed old old ass programmers for its
Mhm.
unemployment system?
Yep.
That new Cobalt?
Yep.
I am
Only all
literally I
military
am
people.
literally one of like maybe 200 people in the whole United
Yep.
States that actually knows how to do line by line Cobalt. But the problem is that the system that they want you to do is millions of lines long.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It's
The
like,
it's
overall
funny it's funny you say that
application.
too because there are other old forms of technology that the government use. I can tell you one specifically that will probably blow your mind. You probably have never heard of it, but maybe you have. There's a lot of federal government entities that still use Lotus Notes as their email system.
Wow.
Ew.
And let
Your
me tell you
spreadsheet is
something.
what? Lotus 123?
Lotus
Yeah,
123.
yeah,
But here's the deal. They use it because Lotus Notes back in the day they used to have this commercial called Lotus Notes was going to be the superhuman software, because not only was it like your email, but it was also you could program. They had formula language. You can use Java, JavaScripting, and all those types of things to program applications within the application of Lotus Notes, because it had its own HTML server built in.
You could
Plus,
create personalized plugins for
right,
it for functionality.
right. And once people started realizing that, they started building these very intricate applications that were part of their financial software, part of their websites, part of a lot of other things that tied into
And they've
things.
literally been running
And
on the
they've been
same
running
thing
on
for
it
30 years.
because they can't get rid of it. Because if they get rid of it, no one's going
You
to know
have
how
to
to
write
fix
the
it.
whole thing new from the ground up.
Good night,
You know,
Megan. I thought Megan had already passed her bedtime because we were talking about all this technology stuff. But thanks for sticking around, and good night.
See ya, Megan. Actually, I gotta go because it's Friday, and the wife is like, "Come watch TV with me." But I was just gonna say, it's the research I'm doing. It's a lot of the programs which were basically, I had to learn Fortran. Even though everything's based on Python, but this thing we're doing to actually reconstruct these events, uh, it works in Fortran.
Hmm.
And it's either rewrite all this code in something else, which will then be this huge undertaking, or Nick, you can just learn Fortran. So actually, this weekend I'm trying to write a Fortran program, which is going to interface with our lab, and I have to. Well, fortunately, all of that stuff is on the internet, and I'm like, okay, what is the code to do this?
Don't you have access to like specialized nerds that specialize in AI?
No, no.
Damn.
Yeah, no.
You should really be hooking up with those guys because AI has come so stupidly far. It's
No,
like
no. I just
genie is coming out of the bottle type of thing right now.
I have undergrads to debug it. So, in fact, but that I spend more time. I mean, if you are coding, you can appreciate this. I go, you have to form your code nicely.
Well, what I'm saying is
Edits
you can have
you gotta let 'em
AIs learn programming languages now and just tell it what you want it to write.
I don't think it could do this one. This one's kind of unique.
You'd be surprised. If you can learn it, it's kind of looking like it can learn it. Like we are right on the cusp of having a general use AI.
Yeah, I just want our robot overlords to take over. Just do everything for me. I can just play video games all day.
Well, you
Hell,
see,
if I want a new video game, I'll just say, AI, make me a new video game. And it should just be able to do it like
now
that.
you see, once we have AI in the box, then hopefully we can come up with a way for me to be in the box because that's my end game goal.
Oh my.
You can live forever then.
Not a pine box.
Yes, you're right. I want to go into the metal box, the magic box. I want to go in there.
Optimus
Well,
Prime has come to save mankind.
I know. I was going to say,
Quantize me to an algorithm and then run me infinitely.
I could support that. That would be kind of fun. Like, why have Alexi, Siri, which, by the way, I hate Siri.
Right.
She does
Why?
jokes.
I already know what you want me to do, so let me just put me in the box and I can solve half of the world's
I'm with
problems.
you, Nick. I'm with you, Nick. I don't like Siri. I go in there. I've got Alexa turning on my lights, turning off my lights, and all that kind of stuff. And then when I look at my phone and I try to do something, I go, Alexa, and I'm wondering why. I'm like, oh, I mean, God dang, Siri.
You see, the problem with putting a the problem with putting a person in the box though is that it's a person and they know how people are. There ain't gonna be no lights to turn on or off anymore.
I think we should all watch Lawnmower Man to see what that would be like.
Oh, I saw that. It's first of all, it was a movie that was made, and the guys that I work with when we were talking about movies recommended this movie and how that lawnmower became like alive and all that. It's a hard watch. Back then in the early 80s, I think maybe 70s, when they created
it's still a hard watch.
It was a hard movie to watch.
You want a movie recommendation? It's an Australian film called Bad Boy Bubby. Now, I gotta warn you, the first 30 minutes of it, you'll be like, what the hell am I watching? But then it turns out to be this really, really good movie. It's just...
It's got a lot of setup.
Yeah, it's got a lot of setup.
And you have to just trust it from the beginning and just go with it.
Yeah, just
and then once the setup's done, it pays off.
It pays off, and it's a great payoff. And I think the only reason why it's not a more popular movie is, because the first 30 minutes. But you have to have, once you see the whole movie, then it makes sense how this whole thing happened.
You don't understand a flower blooming until after it's bloomed.
Yeah. Because I had the same thing. My friend said, "Oh, you want to see this movie?" And like within 10 minutes, I'm like, "What the are you making me watch?"
And you're saying Bad Boy Bubby, Bubby,
Bad
right?
Boy Bubby. Yeah.
There's another one. I think it's on Netflix. I think it's like a German, but it's English dubbed.
Well, I'm getting it right now.
Dark.
Never heard of that.
It's literally just called Dark.
I think I've seen that on my Netflix thing.
I never heard of that one. But I'm downloading Bad Boy Bubby now. I will let you know.
Just don't send me any angry messages until you watch the whole thing.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to discuss it on Drinks and Discussions movie channel.
Oh, nice.
Plug right there.
Nope. Yep. If you go to Netflix and you type in Dark, it's literally a Netflix series.
Oh, there you go.
And you can, it's a television series too, so there's a bunch of episodes for it. But that was a nice mind-bending thriller.
Oh, cool. You have the Megan trailer there. I just subscribed. I didn't know what the link was.
Awesome, thanks.
So
yeah, the Megan trailer freak you out.
I do need to go before I get in trouble.
Yep. Okay. Yep. All right, guys.
Because my wife has a rule. It's like Friday night, 8:30. You're mine.
She's cracking the whip on you.
Yeah, she does, and I listen to her because
I appreciate it.
What did say? Happy life, happy wife. Thank you for having me on, and
Absolutely.
it's good to meet you, cameraman. And
nice to meet you.
We'll do it again.
Talk about fuel air explosives next time.
All right, we'll do it again, guys.
That's my second favorite.
Have a good night. Thanks, cameraman. We'll see you later, buddy.
Later.